All right, Jeffrey, we are live. Welcome everybody to Living in Brittney's Bubble. WTF, what the foundation? Today, we are learning all things foundation with Jeffrey Ellison with Elite Foundation. Jeffrey, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been in the business?
I've been in foundation business for 18 years, or right at 18 years. And then I have evaluated around 10 to 11,000 properties in my career. Know a little bit about it.
Wow, I would say so. We are so glad that you are here today. I know that we have quite a bit to cover. So let's start off with, what does it mean when someone says that they have, foundation problems, or when you hear that they are settling? What does that really mean?
Easiest way to explain it is everything man makes is designed to move something, a little. When a foundation or when a house moves beyond what it's designed to move for and then ultimately cracks something, that's when you develop what we call as a foundation issue. So it's different than what people call basic settlement. There's no such thing as basic settlement. There is seasonal movement and there's settlement. So when people say there's basic settlement, that's like saying, I just got a basic flat tire. It's still flat. Seasonal movement, because the houses will move up and down a little bit throughout the seasons, and then if it falls beyond or settles beyond its normal tolerances, that's when we have a foundation problem.
So when you say seasonal movement, is that when we see, like for example, we have crown molding, and in our bedroom, it's funny because every season we kind of see that the joints between the crown molding just kind of expand a little bit, or they'll go back together. Mm-hmm. And I've used the analogy as our home, breathes, so to speak. Is that
a great analogy? That's what I've actually used that before. The house breathes with the seasons. Sorry to interrupt you. That was perfect.
Great. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad we're on the same page.
That's even better.
Yes. So when we see things like that, that doesn't mean that there's foundation issues, right? So there is a difference. No. But today we're talking about foundation problems.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And so I have my notes here so that way I stay on topic, because I like to go down rabbit trails.
I want to throw, can I squeeze something in here?
Yes, please do.
Yes. I get a call on this. I'm after a cold freeze, after the February freezes, I bet we got 10 calls on it. And I'm not a major organization. I never want to be. I came from a major organization. I don't want to be that big, but they would get 100 calls after a freeze because people's crown molding was separating. When your crown molding separating just at the joints, the real reason, it's all the dry air you're pumping in your house. It's actually shrinking your wood a little bit. It's not that the house is moving. It's the heat that's shrinking the wood that causing those little gaps. So you mentioned it. I got to throw that out there. So go ahead.
I'm glad that you did. That's very, very informative. So thank you for that. So we've talked about what it really means to have settling. So why, can we dive a little bit deeper into why we see this? What causes foundation problems?
Well, the best answer is, and I'll get into a little more in depth in this, the best answer is water. It's either too much or not enough. And in Texas, other than the last 8 years, it's either way too much water at once or way too little water throughout the summer. And that constant shrinking and expansion of the soil is what ultimately causes the houses to move up and down. So when it's dry, get my hands up here in the camera, the houses tend to sink. And then when it's wet, the soil expands and then it kind of comes back up. And that constant moving of the foundation or the house will eventually cause a break in your foundation. And then that's where we need to come pin it or stop it from doing that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's very informative. And that does make sense. I understand. So do you typically see more foundation issues with that and that type of movement with pier and beam or slab foundations?
Well, the up and down movement would definitely be more slab movement. It doesn't happen as much on pier and beams because the surface area of the foundation itself is, like this.
Right.
It's all on individual supports underneath it. It's the perimeter grade beam of the house that's moving on a pier and beam, so it's a much smaller process. So water doesn't affect it as much. On a slab house, the entire footprint is on the soil, so it all moves simultaneously. So the heat and the dryness versus all the water affects a slab more than it will a pier and beam.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Was there anything else that you wanted to add on why this happens, Jeffrey, before I move on to just as far as like the soil is concerned and where this takes place? Was there anything else that you wanted to add on that particular topic?
Yeah, it's of course, foundation is everywhere. It's just predominantly in our area. It's about a 300-mile strip that starts in Corpus Christi and goes up to Kansas. And that 300-mile strip is primarily the black clay. We still have foundation problems in red clay. We still have foundation problems in sand, but predominantly it's the black gumbo clay, as we call it, which is a very expansive soil. It's wet like a sponge. When it gets wet, it expands. When it gets dry, it shrinks. Most other soils don't do that. Regular old dirt doesn't do that. Sand doesn't do that. Red clay doesn't do that. It's primarily just the black gumbo clay that we have in our area, which is a very narrow spot when you look at the whole world. So that's ultimately why our area has more foundation problems than, let's say, New Mexico. It's just different.
Well, lucky us.
Yes, lucky us. I'd rather have this soil than sinkholes in Florida. So give or take. Or
Okay.
earthquakes in California.
Touche. So let me look at my note here because, I was gonna tell you this. So we frequently hear, just like in the real estate industry, amongst us realtors and sometimes talking to our clients, we're like, it's not a matter of if you'll have foundation issues, it's a matter of when. Is that true?
Yes, unfortunately, it's true. We've talked many times about with all different people, what is the number? It's around 80 to 85% of every home, and let's just say DFW, is going to eventually end up with some sort of foundation problem, whether it be minor or major, but it's about 85%. So yes, it is always a matter of time.
Wow. I did not realize that statistic, that it was that high.
It's a big number. Now you get a garage rotation, someone's porch falls down or something like that. All
Sure.
minor, everyday, slow leaking tires that can be fixed, no big deal. But I would say I would agree with about the 80% number of all homes, and a lot of it is how old the house is versus how young it is. So younger homes tend not to move as much because the concrete's stronger and it's newer, so it can hold itself in place. And then the older houses, they become more brittle, so are more flexible, so they tend to move easier. So
would you say that with newer construction, I mean, because, especially here, in Texas and in the DFW area, I mean, we're just still building. Would you say with the newer infrastructure as a whole that they are doing a better job with doing, with the foundation with that?
Yeah, they are.
So that helps.
That does help. You're still going to have, brand new homes built in 2022 that need some foundation repair next year.
Sure.
But
sure.
Overall, absolutely. They are doing a much better job. The post tension cables that came in '86, they're definitely making it stronger. One, if you're going to put in a 50,000 PSI cable, you've got to build the slab a little thicker. That makes it a lot better. But they tend to have, yes, they've done a much better job building the houses, probably starting in the late 90s. That doesn't mean you can't find a house built in the 80s that doesn't have foundation problems. They just done a better job after, I'd say, 1995. They've actually come a long way. Yes.
Good to know. Good to know. Thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit about prevention. So we have homeowners that are watching this today. How can they prolong the inevitable? How can they prevent having issues with their foundation?
Yeah, I'll go off on a sidebar here, and we'll probably get to this later in the talk. But if you know that you already have a foundation problem, there is no prolonging it. Get it fixed. The quicker you get to it, the better. But preventative, so if you don't have any evidence of foundation movement now, there's only two things you can do. Water your foundation and make sure there's plenty of dirt up against it. Now, people say there's a 3-inch rule of dirt below your brick line. Assuming it's a brick slab house, that makes it, they're the easiest to talk normal about. You start getting into pier and beams. Well, what kind of pier and beam? It gets a little more difficult to explain to the general audience. So on your slab, what's below the brick line, people call it the slab, it's actually the grade beam, the perimeter of the house. It's really smooth. And then every once in a while, if the dirt levels drop low enough, you can see a rough part where the smoothness, it becomes really rough. It's because when they pour I'll back this thing up a little bit. When they pour the slab, they dig trenches in it and they put boards in. And of course, the trench is 2 feet deep, and it's a 2x6 board, for example, and they pour concrete down it, and it's really smooth right here. But once it gets below this form board, it becomes really rough. So the 3-inch rule doesn't matter. You just never want to see where the form boards ended as far as the level of dirt. So if you start to see really rough edges on the side of your house, that means you need to add more dirt. And that's the easy thing, is adding dirt. The harder thing is watering. How much do you water? When to water? And there's no exact science to it. How long is a string? Well, it depends. General practice is a soaker hose or a drip system. I highly recommend drip system because if you use a soaker hose, you got to turn it on, you got to turn it off. If you're going to use a soaker hose, buy the $35, $40 timer and just replace your batteries once a month and set it so it automatically runs. You want your soaker hose about 12 inches away from the house, not up against it, never in the little air crack, right up against the house. I'm sorry, not right up against the house, about 12 inches away from the house, and run it about 15 minutes a day, every day, when it's really dry. Now, once the rains come, you can skip a few days. And then in the winter, you could do it once or twice a week, depending on how much moisture we have in the ground. It's an inexact science. I guess, what should the consistency be? If you touch the ground and it changes the color of your finger, you get a little dirt and mud on your finger, but you can't stick your finger in the mud, that would be ideal consistency.
Okay.
Water is not that easy.
Well, I'm just feeling guilty over here because, there's been a few times this summer where I saw, cracks in our actual dirt itself in our backyard. Mm-hmm. That's a huge no-no. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's high risk.
10 feet away from your yard, it's not going to cause a problem to your house. But if you have that kind of drought that we're in right now, and you got a 2-inch gap in your yard, the water underneath your house is also evaporating. So watering serves two purposes. One, it keeps the dirt moist around the perimeter edge, the framework of the house, but you're also creating a moisture barrier so the water underneath the house doesn't evaporate.
Okay.
So say that again. The idea is to keep the water from under your house from evaporating. That's what watering is for. So do I need to water a pier and beam? Nope. Do not water your pier and beams. Your surface area is this big. You're not doing anything but potentially rotting your wood. So watering pier and beams is just pointless. It's not going to help you or save you or do anything in your benefit.
Okay.
So,
good to know.
UBI. Well, it's not. I guess it's not a UBI. Useless bits of information. I guess not. Pier and beam people, you'll see soaker hose around. Just take those and throw them away. They're not helping you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have family in Lake Highlands, and friends that live in Lake Highlands that are on pier and beam. So that's helpful information just in case if they're watering, they need to stop. Okay. I love that. So when we have a buyer that is looking at a home, they want to make an offer on it, but first of all, before I get into that, let's talk about signs. Like, what are the signs? So if we have buyers that we're showing them houses, what are some signs that they can look for that would indicate that there are foundation problems? Let's talk about the signs first. And then after that, let's talk about what they should do if that were to happen.
Okay. Well, first thing we look for is we look at the exterior. The exterior of the home, assuming it's a brick home. Now, if it's all siding, you're not looking at anything on the outside. But if it's a brick home, you're going to see foundation movement on the outside of the home long before you see it on the inside. And people generally want to look for brick cracks. I don't even look for those. Look for the joint separations. So
Okay.
if a house falls and the brick wall moves, it's not going to move in the brick or in the mortar first. It's going to move at a joint, at a bead of caulk where it meets a window or where it meets a door, or where, you know, a lot of houses today are built with expansion joints. If your expansion joint's open, your house is moving, period. End of story. But look at your window joint. So when you have a bead of caulk and a brick sits up against it, if the front of the house falls, it's going to separate like this. Now, when you go look at the window joint, if you're like, is it separating or is it not? No, it's not separated. You know, you can stick your finger in it. It's a separation. So look for the joints. Now, obviously the cracks that you can stick your finger in, yeah, but people will go and look for with a magnifying glass, looking for the hairline cracks. Every house in America has got foundation problems if you're looking for hairlines, because they all exist. But look for the joint separations. That's the easiest thing to look for. You can look at freeze board separations, but they're just pieces of wood. Freeze board is the crown molding on the outside of the house that covers the top of the brick right underneath the eaves of the roof. The corners are built at 45-degree angles, and when the house falls, it rotates out like that. So you can look for freeze board separations. But if you have a freeze board separation, just walk down to the nearest joint and see if it's separated, because it is a board that can weather warp. And that's what you look for on the outside. And always look high, never look low. Inspectors make this mistake, and it's not a mistake, it's just the way they're taught, is they look at the slab and they want to see little cracks in the slab. Well, if a house falls and you have a little crack right here, as that crack gets taller, it gets much bigger. So always look high. So look at the right underneath the eaves of the roof and look for separations that high, because then you'll know if there's actually movement or not. And then on the inside, it's pretty obvious. Drywall cracks. You got a drywall crack, probably want to give us a call. And if you got doors that are sticking and rubbing, probably want to give us a call. If you have doors sticking upstairs and nothing's downstairs, probably not foundations, probably just a little sag in the framing from too much dry air in the house. And then people want to, same thing with tile cracks. They want to go in with a magnifying glass and look for these tile cracks. Now, it's obvious if there's a crack in your slab that it's got to break. What we do is not rocket science. Just we, the industry, want you to believe it is. It's basic common sense. And it's a lot easier to understand once you get someone to telling you the truth. It's transparent.
So speaking of foundation and inspectors, a lot of times what we'll see too is on an inspection report, they will actually notate as a discrepancy or an issue with the foundation if the talk about like the four corners where they pop off. So what's corner pop? So say that again.
It's spalling, S-P-A-L-L-I-N-G, or corner.
Okay, so which happens it's a common thing. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I'm sorry?
Will you talk about that a little bit, so that way people that have those understand what it means and why they have those corner pops, and if a buyer's looking for a home and they see corner pops, that they don't freak out and think that there are foundation problems going on? Yeah.
Now, if people watching, if y'all don't know what we're talking about, just Google corner pop or spalling and you'll see what we're talking about. It's where the degree underneath your bricks and then it just pops off.
Jeffrey, hold on just a second. I know you have a lot of background noise. I just want to tell anybody that's watching this, please give Jeffrey some grace right now. He is at the hospital. His mom is having surgery. And so he has found an area in the hospital to do this live. So if y'all are watching, I just want y'all to be aware that that's why you're hearing some background noise.
I'm going to try to move over here.
Are you sure? Okay, that's up to you. Okay. Such a beautiful building. I love the backdrop.
Just hate the reason why we're here.
Well, I do too. I'm grateful that you are and that you've taken the time to do this. You've been considering. That's quieter.
That's better or not?
Yeah, that is better. Can you hear me better?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, great. So we're talking about the corner pops.
corner pops are strictly cosmetic, 100%. It's not foundation related at all. If I took a pencil, I don't have a pencil with me. If I took this phone and I tried to break the very end of it, I couldn't do it. If I was trying to bend it like this, it'd break in half. The damage on a foundation problem never happens on the very end. It always happens up in the middle of the house. Does that make sense? A corner pop is just the 90-degree corner of a house that the top of it spalls off, or corner pops off. The reason, here's the scientific reason, is mortar expands faster than concrete. So when you have the expansion, the heat that expands the mortar and the brick, it goes at a faster pace, so it shears off the edge of the corner of the house. It's more prevalent in Texas because of our massive weather changes. I mean, I don't know, it's 60 degrees today. Tomorrow it could be 100. And that massive changes causes that. And that's the reason why we have more spalling pops, or corner pops, or spalling here in Texas.
That makes so much sense. Thank you for covering that. I know that, working with, especially, first time home buyers, they don't really know much about, foundation. And when they see that, well, that doesn't, especially if it's put into an inspection report, can make a buyer nervous. So I'm glad we were able to cover that. So don't worry about corner pops. Definitely look high, look exterior, look at your expansion joints outside. Obviously you can look at, sticking doors, cracks over windows and door frames, those sort of things.
On the inside, so everybody knows, we're looking at diagonal cracks. Straight up and down cracks and horizontal cracks really don't mean anything. Sometimes you just have a vertical crack above a window or above a door. That could be from vibration of wind blowing up against your window, causing the joints to move a little bit. So straight up and down cracks or horizontal cracks we're not worried about. It's the diagonal ones that show differential movement.
Absolutely.
If you have differential movement on the inside of the house, I can promise you it's outside. Just go find it. So which goes back to always look at the outside of the house. That's going to tell you the story. We still use the zip levels. We still take the measurements that we're supposed to. And I've been doing this so long, I can almost dead on diagnose a house before I even drop my zip level, just because I can look at where the damage is and know the length is. All right, this is going to be a 10-pier job. Now I'm just going to go prove it to myself so I can tell the homeowner what's going on.
Jeffrey, let's talk about, so speaking of signs, let's say we have a home buyer that is purchasing a home and it's investor owned. So the investor has no history of this particular property and its condition. And a lot of times we see that these investors, especially wholesalers or whatnot, they may purchase a home that they've never even stepped foot in.
Yeah.
So if there were previous foundation work done and it had already been patched and painted and whatnot, are there clear signs for a home buyer to see that there were previous foundation problems or previous foundation work that has been completed?
On a good wholesaler's investor flip, usually not. If they haven't painted the brick, let's assume it's a brick house. Siding house, just give us a call, let us come look at it.
Okay.
If it's a brick house and they haven't painted the outside brick, then you can still see evidence of it. You just got to know what to look for. Now, one of the benefits a foundation company has is the elevations that we take inside the house. We know where the elevations are changing. So then we can go out and look at where they probably did the patchwork. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. One tip that I was given many years ago, Jeffrey, was for home buyers to look inside of closets, to look above the door frame.
I like it.
Because a lot of times when people are doing patchwork, they're really doing it on the interior of the home. They're not thinking about patching above the door frame inside of closets. So you may be able to see old, hairline, diagonal cracks that were a result of previous foundation work. So I definitely wanted to share that, and thank you for your, for your tip as well. If you have any question of whether or not the foundation is it has the proper elevations, then what should the home buyer or homeowner do?
If you have any concerns, primarily the homeowners. homeowners kind of already know. I mean, they should know. It's really your buyers. If they have any concerns, or even really someone getting ready to sell the house that doesn't want to get an unbelievable bid stuck up against them that they have to disclose when it's bogus. You've been there. Um, just give us a call. It's a free assessment. We come out and look at the house for free and tell you what our opinion is of the property, whether it's good or whether it needs some work. Um, and we're about 50-50 on buyer, what we call buyer leads. When a buyer calls us out, it's about a 50-50 split. So 50%, there's nothing wrong with it at all. And the other 50%, we actually recommend some work.
Sure.
And we don't have a problem saying there's nothing wrong. We don't get to give a lot of good news. So that we kind of like saying there's nothing wrong with the house every once in a while.
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And so I know we've talked a little bit about, the signs of it and whatnot. So if there are foundation problems that need to be addressed, you already said, don't wait, don't try to prolong it, don't water, don't do, just get it addressed, get it fixed, the sooner the better, right? So it has less impact on your actual home. Let's talk about like, what does this cost? I know there's a lot of fear around that when you have, foundation problems as a homeowner. Oh my gosh, like this is just, really going to put us in, in a really bad, financial position. Or as when a home buyer is looking at a home, they're thinking this is just too much for me to even deal with. I don't even think I'll be able to negotiate this because foundation issues are big problems and they cost too much. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Talking primarily from the buyer side.
Yeah, like what would a foundation, like when there's foundation problems, like what's the average cost of this repair?
It's about $5,000 to $7,000.
Okay.
Now most buyers, especially first-time home buyers, they think 15 to 20. I was in a homeowner's house yesterday and they were shocked that I told them it's gonna. And now it was a bigger repair. I said you're going to be about $8,000, and they were happy. So what do you think this was going to cost? I was always told it's around 20 grand. Said, no, I don't know where people get these numbers from. Average cost is $5,000 to $7,000. Average repair is 12 to 15 piers, and that's about $5,000 to $7,000. Now the prices change a little bit depending on if we're having to go through a lot of roots, go through cracks, or go through concrete. If we have to put an interior pier in, but about $5,000 to $7,000 is an average regular job that we'd see on a regular basis. That's probably about 80% of the repairs that we do are probably around $5,000 to $7,000. That's a fair number. And that's my cost. Now you go with the guys that are on TV, the exact same repair, using the exact same equipment, using the exact same type of guys. They're going to be twice that, but they're also on TV. And it's a fair price for them, but it should be around $5,000 to $7,000.
Sure. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Jeffrey, I don't want to tie up too much more of your time, but I do have a couple of more things that I wanted to ask you before we end our call. You and I were talking the other day that there were some misconceptions and there are myths, that are out there surrounding the topic of foundation. Can you share some of those with us?
Yeah. Let's take the big one. I get this all the time, and there's a lot of, I'm going to call them idiots. Roots do not cause foundation problems. There's a lot of scientific studies that says it does. There's a lot of scientific studies that says it doesn't. There is a major horticulturist, the leading horticulturist in the state of Texas, does not believe that roots cause foundation problems. I have seen firsthand where there was a foundation problem. An engineer told them, if you remove these 6 trees, the house will rebound. I went back 6 months to the date after they removed the trees and the house had dropped another inch. I'm one to believe that the roots are helping hold the house up. You'll never convince me that roots cause foundation problems. In my opinion, I think we, the industry, the foundation industry, made that up because now I have an excuse to put piers on any house because every house has trees. So I think that, in my opinion, that's a complete bogus myth. Don't remove, I don't care. Light your tree on fire, burn it. I don't care. I'm not a tree hugger. But if you want to put a root barrier in or remove a tree because of the foundation, I just think you're wrong. I don't agree with that at all.
So save your money, leave the tree, let it live, trim it back maybe. Don't let it hang on your roof, right? Because that's a different issue.
Yeah, no, that's a different story. The tree
but you're saying, in your professional opinion, you're saying that tree roots are not causing foundation issues.
No, not at all.
Okay, that's a great one.
Another big one that, and this is primarily from what a lot of realtors say, is if the brick is only through the mortar and not the brick, it's not a foundation problem. Well, no, you can have a
Say that
crack.
again, Jeff. Say that again.
If you only have a crack in the mortar and an individual brick is not cracked, then it's not foundation, not a foundation movement. Apparently you haven't heard that one.
I don't think I have.
So people think if there's a crack in your brick, that's foundation. But if it only goes through the mortar, it's not foundation related. And I'm like, I mean, seriously, you believe that? If there's a crack in the side of your house, it doesn't matter if a brick broke or if it's just through the mortar, it's a foundation problem.
Yeah.
As long as
the crack is going to go down the path of least resistance.
Which again is generally the caulking joint. So yes, but you know, there may be zero brick cracks, but your expansion joints open up this much. Well, there's no cracks in the brick. I don't have a foundation problem. No, your expansion joints open. You have a foundation problem. Your expansion joints opened up. Foundation repair causes ridiculous amounts of damage. No, it doesn't. If I did 100 houses, 2, we would cause a lot of excess damage too. Those are in really bad shape properties. Most of the time it's house is down 1.5 inches. We got to put 10 piers on it. We raise it up. All the cracks close back together. No additional damage. No one's going to talk about that because it's not exciting. It's boring. I had a flat tire. No one's going to tell that story. But you have a blowout on I-75, you're going to tell a lot of people. So most of the repairs we do, 98% of the repairs we do are just everyday, simple, easy fixes that no one talks about. And at $5,000 to $7,000. It's not the 15 to 20 where all the plumbing had to be rerouted. We broke windows, we buckled the shingles, the doors don't work. That's really rare.
Okay.
It doesn't happen that often.
That should give a lot of people some peace of mind. Jeffrey, what about the nail pops? I know that was a topic.
Yeah, nail pops, that is one of the myths. A lot of people, and I think the inspectors are finally coming on. It took them a while to get to the corner pop. They realize that's just cosmetic. Nail pops are not foundation movement related at all. The nail pops are always in your ceiling that's below the attic. If you have a 2-story house, you generally don't have nail pops in the first story. It's only in the second story. It has to do with the heat distribution or temperature change in your attic that causes the nails to back out. If you go to higher end custom homes, they don't use nails in the drywall and the ceiling. They use screws so they don't back out and create nail pops. It's actually a temperature change, not a foundation related problem.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, I think you have covered absolutely everything that I wanted to accomplish today. I appreciate you doing this and taking the time, especially considering that you were sitting in a hospital waiting room for your mom. I hope that she is going to have a speedy recovery, and so prayers for her. I am not going to type any more of your time. Thank you so much, Jeffrey.
Yes,
you are a godsend.
Thank you for being patient with me with all the noise and having to be outside. It's a nice day, but thank you I'm glad we still got to do this.
Of course. Yes, me too. And I know that this was a lot of great information for our clients. So thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. We'll see you later. Bye, Jeffrey.
Bye.